Have you ever felt like life is pushing you in a direction you didn't choose? Or perhaps you've been holding on to something so tightly, whether it's a person, a dream, or a situation, that you're afraid of what might happen if you let go? You might feel like you're losing a part of yourself, but what if I told you that true peace doesn't come from holding on? What if it comes from releasing your grip and trusting that what is meant for you will come at the right time? In Buddhism, there's a powerful teaching that shows us how to find peace by practicing something that seems counterintuitive: detachment. But what does it really mean to detach, and why is it so crucial for our well-being? How can embracing this simple yet profound concept bring the freedom and serenity you've been longing for? These are the questions we're diving into today. Detachment isn't about abandoning everything or giving up what we love. It's about understanding that nothing in life is permanent. When we learn to let go of our attachments, we unlock the ability to live more fully, to embrace life as it is, and to flow with its inevitable changes. It's a practice that frees the soul and allows us to live without fear, without struggle, and most importantly, without resistance to what life brings. Today, we're going to explore the true meaning of detachment and how it can transform your life. Through stories, wisdom, and practical tips, we'll uncover how detachment isn't about indifference, but about radical acceptance and trust in life's timing. You'll learn how to incorporate these teachings into your own daily life to cultivate a deep sense of inner peace and freedom. If you're ready to release what no longer serves you and embrace the flow of life, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to Zen Mind Journey, and leave a comment sharing your thoughts on how detachment has shown up in your life. Trust me, this is a journey worth taking, so stay with me until the end. The art of detachment, understanding the true meaning. In Buddhism, detachment is not about renouncing life or withdrawing from the world, but rather about freeing ourselves from the suffering that attachment brings. It teaches that attachment, the deep emotional clinging to things, people, and situations, is the root cause of suffering. We often cling to possessions or relationships out of a deep fear of losing them, believing that they define us or our happiness. However, Buddhism shows us that the more tightly we hold on to these attachments, the more we invite suffering into our lives. By learning to let go, we can release ourselves from the constant fear of loss and open the door to true peace and freedom. A profound Buddhist story illustrates this principle perfectly: the story of the monk and the porcelain cup. The monk, deeply attached to a beautiful porcelain cup that his master had gifted him, always kept it close. He cherished it, admired its delicate beauty, and believed it was irreplaceable. One day, as he was walking, the cup slipped from his hands and shattered into pieces. Immediately, the monk was overcome with a sense of deep loss. His connection to the cup had become so intense that its destruction felt like the destruction of something vital within him. But his master, witnessing his grief, spoke calmly. That cup was already broken from the beginning. This moment serves as a powerful reminder of a key Buddhist truth: nothing in this world is permanent. The cup, while beautiful, was always subject to change. Its fragility was not just in the physical sense, but in the very nature of existence. Everything around us is transient. Nothing lasts forever. The monk's attachment to the cup caused him suffering because he believed it was a permanent part of his life. However, the master's words help him understand that attachment to anything, even something as simple as a cup, only leads to sorrow because it assumes that things will remain unchanged. Once the monk accepts the impermanence of the cup, he finds peace. The cup was never truly his to hold on to, and in its breaking, he learns the art of letting go. This story echoes the broader message that attachment to people, places, and things inevitably leads to suffering. When we become attached to something, we unknowingly create the expectation that it will stay with us forever. But life is constantly changing, and everything is subject to that change. Our relationships, our jobs, our possessions, none of these are permanent. The more we hold on to them, the more we set ourselves up for disappointment when they inevitably change or leave. However, detachment in Buddhism isn't about indifference or disengagement from life. Many people misunderstand detachment as a form of apathy, a belief that we should simply stop caring about things or people. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Detachment is about loving and appreciating things without becoming emotionally dependent on them. It's about enjoying the present moment fully, knowing that things will change and that it's okay. When we practice detachment, we don't lose the capacity to love or care deeply. Instead, we free ourselves from the fear of loss. In fact, detachment allows us to live more fully because we are no longer bogged down by the anxiety of holding onto something that will inevitably slip through our fingers. For example, imagine a person who clings to a toxic relationship because they are afraid of being alone. The more they cling to this unhealthy bond, the more they suffer. However, if they were to practice detachment, they could let go of the need for the relationship to define them. By doing so, they create the space for healthier relationships and experiences to emerge, relationships that are based on mutual respect and love, not fear. This is where the concept of impermanence comes into play. Everything around us is in a constant state of flux, and acknowledging that fact is what helps us let go. When we embrace impermanence, we understand that nothing stays the same, and that's okay. We are not meant to hold on to things forever. Instead, we are meant to experience life fully, embracing each moment as it comes, knowing that it will eventually pass. Learning to detach from our attachments doesn't mean abandoning love, joy, or passion. It means finding a balance where we can appreciate life's gifts without becoming dependent on them. Detachment frees us from the emotional burdens that come with attachment, burdens like fear, anxiety, and disappointment, and allows us to engage with life in a more peaceful and liberated way. The true freedom that comes with detachment is not in distancing ourselves from the world, but in engaging with it from a place of inner peace, knowing that no matter what happens, we can handle it. The art of detachment is about understanding that we don't need to hold on to anything for it to be meaningful. Life, in all its impermanence, is meaningful simply because we experience it, not because we try to control it or keep it from slipping away. In essence, detachment is not about giving up on life. It's about fully embracing life as it is, without fear or resistance. It's about loving without possessing, appreciating without clinging, and living fully in the moment, knowing that whatever comes and goes is exactly as it should be. This practice, when embraced, brings us a profound peace that no attachment ever could. Radical acceptance, embracing life as it is. In life, we often find ourselves fighting against the current, struggling to make things happen the way we envision them. We want situations to unfold according to our desires, expecting life to align with our plans. Yet, life rarely works that way. One of the most profound teachings in Buddhism is the concept of radical acceptance, an approach that invites us to stop resisting what we cannot change and instead embrace life as it is. This teaching challenges us to surrender our expectations and stop fighting the inevitable, allowing us to cultivate peace amidst the chaos of existence. Radical acceptance in Buddhism is not about giving up or resigning ourselves to a life of suffering. Rather, it is about acknowledging reality for what it is, without denial or distortion, and accepting it with openness. It is recognizing that, despite our desires or plans, life has its own rhythm, and it will unfold in its own time and way. This principle encourages us to stop clinging to the belief that we can control everything, and instead focus on the present moment, with a deep awareness of how things truly are. A powerful story from Buddhist teachings illustrates this idea. A disciple once approached his master, frustrated by the suffering he was experiencing. He asked, "Master, why is life so difficult? Why do I suffer?" The master, calm and composed, replied simply, "You suffer because you resist what is." The disciple was confused, and the master explained, "Life is not here to meet your expectations. It is not here to please you. It is here to teach you." In this exchange, the Master highlights an essential truth. Our suffering arises not because life is inherently painful, but because we resist the flow of life. We want to impose our desires and expectations on reality, and when life doesn't cooperate, we experience frustration, anger, or sorrow. This resistance only amplifies the suffering we already face. When we fight against what is, we waste precious energy that could be better spent embracing the present moment and learning from it. Buddhism teaches that everything, including pain and discomfort, is an opportunity for growth. The key is to stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" A question that stems from a desire to control and understand the reasons behind our suffering. Instead, we can ask, "What is this teaching me?" This shift in perspective allows us to move from a place of resistance to a place of acceptance and curiosity, where we are open to learning from every experience, good or bad. I personally experienced this shift in perspective during a challenging time in my life. I thought I had lost something incredibly important, a job, a relationship, and perhaps a part of my identity. The loss was deeply painful, and I couldn't see beyond the immediate hurt. However, in time, I began to realize that the loss had opened up doors to opportunities one had never imagined. It was a painful process, but in hindsight, I recognized that it was one of the best things that could have happened. This experience taught me the value of letting go and trusting the flow of life, even when things don't unfold the way we expect them to. This lesson is echoed in many Buddhist stories that emphasize faith and trust in life. One well-known story tells of a monk who loses his only possession, a beautiful horse. The villagers, upon hearing of the loss, express their sympathy, but the monk remains unfazed, saying, "Good or bad, who knows?" Later, the horse returns with a herd of wild horses, much to the surprise of the villagers. In the end, the monk's loss turned out to be a blessing. The story underscores the idea that we cannot judge life's events as good or bad in the moment, because they are often part of a larger plan we cannot yet see. This shift from resistance to acceptance does not mean that we passively accept injustice or harmful situations. Radical acceptance is not about resigning ourselves to a life of suffering. Instead, it is about accepting what we cannot change in order to clear the space to take action on what we can control. It's about releasing the grip we have on things and allowing ourselves to respond to life with clarity, rather than reacting from a place of fear or frustration. The practice of radical acceptance encourages us to fully experience life's ups and downs without judgment. It teaches us to appreciate the present moment, knowing that everything is transient. The more we resist, the more we perpetuate our own suffering. But when we accept, we open ourselves up to peace. It's the paradox of life. In letting go of our need to control, we find a deeper sense of freedom and fulfillment. In my own life, I've learned that the greatest gifts often come disguised as challenges. By embracing the uncertainties and difficulties of life, I've been able to grow in ways I never imagined. The power of radical acceptance lies in its ability to transform our suffering into wisdom by allowing us to approach life with open hearts and minds, free from the burdens of resistance. Ultimately, the practice of radical acceptance reminds us that life is not about perfection or control. It is about flow, learning, and adaptation. As we move through life, embracing what comes with open arms, we begin to realize that the pain we experience is not something to be feared, but something to be understood and integrated into the fabric of our being. Through radical acceptance, we can turn even our most challenging moments into opportunities for personal transformation. Trusting life, letting go of the need to control. In our modern world, it's easy to believe that if we plan every detail of our lives and control every outcome, we can avoid pain and guarantee happiness. We strive to manage everything: our careers, relationships, finances, and health, hoping that our meticulous efforts will protect us from the uncertainties of life. Yet, despite our best efforts, life continues to unfold in unpredictable ways. The reality is that we cannot control everything, and trying to do so often leads to frustration, stress, and a sense of powerlessness. Buddhism teaches us a profound lesson about surrendering control and trusting in the process of life. One of the most powerful stories in this regard is the tale of a monk and his son. The story goes like this. An old monk lived in a small village, and one day, a beautiful wild horse appeared in his yard. The villagers, seeing the horse as a rare and valuable asset, commented that the monk was incredibly fortunate to have such a treasure. But the monk, with his usual calm, simply replied, "Luck or misfortune, who knows?" Shortly after, the monk's son tried to tame the horse. During the attempt, he fell and broke his leg. The villagers, once again, expressed their sympathy, saying, "What misfortune! Now your son cannot help with the farm or go to work." But the monk, undisturbed, repeated, "Luck or misfortune, who knows?" A few weeks later, a war broke out, and the king's soldiers came to draft all the able-bodied young men in the village. The monk's son, however, was unable to join the army due to his injury. The villagers, now realizing the deeper significance of the monk's calm response, exclaimed, "What luck you have! Your son is spared from the war." And once again, the monk replied, "Luck or misfortune, who knows?" This story beautifully illustrates the Buddhist perspective on life's unpredictability. We often find ourselves trying to assign labels like good or bad to events in our lives based on how they affect us in the moment. But in reality, we can never fully understand the bigger picture. What seems like misfortune or disappointment today might lead to unexpected blessings in the future, just as the monk's son's injury ultimately saved him from a fate worse than his initial misfortune. The core lesson here is that life cannot be controlled. We cannot predict every outcome, nor can we control the timing of events. What we can control, however, is our response to life's unfolding. The monk's wisdom lies in his acceptance of life as it comes, without resistance. He trusted that life, in all its unpredictability, had its own purpose, even if it wasn't immediately clear. By embracing uncertainty, we can find peace. Trusting life means letting go of the need to control every detail and learning to flow with life's natural rhythm. Imagine a river. Its course is constantly changing, adapting to obstacles in its path. The water doesn't struggle against the rocks or resist the turns in its journey. It simply flows around them. This is the essence of trust, understanding that life will continue to move forward regardless of our attempts to control it, and that we can either fight the current or learn to go with it. Letting go of control doesn't mean passivity or resignation. It doesn't mean we stop striving or stop making efforts to improve our lives. It simply means we stop trying to control everything. It means accepting that not everything is within our grasp and that uncertainty is an inherent part of life. When we release our obsessive need to control every outcome, we open ourselves up to new possibilities. We stop rigidly holding on to a specific path and instead allow ourselves to embrace the journey as it unfolds. The freedom that comes with letting go of control is profound. When we stop fixating on specific outcomes and start trusting in the process, we reduce our anxiety and fear. We stop obsessing over the future and can instead live fully in the present. By accepting that life will have its ups and downs, that things won't always go as planned, we can experience a sense of freedom that we would never feel if we were constantly trying to dictate the terms of our existence. For example, when we let go of the need to control our relationships, we allow them to grow naturally. If we try to control or manipulate the people around us, we create tension and distance. But when we trust the relationship and allow it to unfold organically, we foster connection and mutual respect. The same applies to our careers, health, and personal growth. When we trust that life will guide us where we need to go, we find ourselves more open to opportunities, more adaptable to challenges, and more at peace with the outcome, whatever it may be. Ultimately, trusting life is about releasing the illusion of control and recognizing that life's unfolding is part of a greater plan. Just as we cannot predict every twist and turn of the river, we cannot predict where life will take us. But by embracing uncertainty and trusting the process, we open ourselves to a deeper, more meaningful experience of life, one that is free from the burdens of fear, worry, and resistance. Letting go of control is the key to truly living, allowing us to flow with life rather than fight against it. Meditation, cultivating inner peace. In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to become overwhelmed by the constant bombardment of thoughts, emotions, and external stimuli. Our minds race from one thing to the next, and it often feels like we can never truly find peace. Meditation, however, is a powerful tool that can help us achieve inner peace and gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Through the practice of meditation, we learn to quiet the mind, reduce stress, and cultivate a sense of calm that can carry us through life's challenges. Meditation has long been practiced in many cultures, especially in Buddhism, where it is seen as a means of achieving clarity and enlightenment. One of the most insightful teachings related to meditation comes from a story about a disciple and his master. The disciple, frustrated by the constant whirlwind of thoughts in his mind, went to his master and complained about his inability to focus. The master, with patience, handed him a glass of water filled with dirt, shook it up, and told him to wait. Over time, the dirt settled at the bottom of the glass, and the water became clear. The master then explained, "This is the mind. If you allow it to settle, clarity comes by itself." This story beautifully illustrates the role of meditation in calming the mind. Our minds, much like the water in the glass, can become clouded by the constant swirl of thoughts and emotions. Meditation helps us settle these thoughts, allowing us to achieve mental clarity. It's not about forcing our minds to stop thinking, which is an unrealistic expectation, but about allowing our thoughts to come and go freely, without clinging to them. Just like the dirt settles in the water, our mental turbulence eventually clears, leaving behind a sense of peace and insight. The key to this process is stillness. In a world that encourages constant movement, both physically and mentally, meditation teaches us to embrace stillness as a pathway to clarity. Stillness in meditation doesn't mean that our minds will be empty, but rather that we can observe our thoughts without judgment or attachment. By practicing mindfulness, focusing on the present moment, and allowing ourselves to simply observe without reacting, we begin to cultivate a deeper understanding of the impermanence of all things, including our thoughts and emotions. This awareness helps us detach from the constant stream of mental noise and return to a state of inner calm. Regular meditation practice offers numerous benefits for both the mind and body. One of the most profound benefits is its ability to reduce stress. When we meditate, we activate the body's relaxation response, which counteracts the stress response. This helps lower heart rates, reduce blood pressure, and alleviate the physical symptoms of anxiety. Meditation also helps to release the grip that worry and fear have on our minds, allowing us to approach challenges with greater composure. But beyond just reducing stress, meditation deepens our self-awareness. It allows us to observe our thoughts and emotions without getting caught up in them. Over time, this practice enables us to develop a more balanced perspective on life. Instead of reacting impulsively to situations, we learn to respond with clarity and mindfulness. By becoming more attuned to our thoughts and feelings, we can better understand our internal landscape, leading to a greater sense of control over our emotional well-being. To start practicing meditation, it doesn't require complex rituals or long periods of time. The simplest and most accessible form of meditation is mindfulness meditation, where you focus on your breath. Find a quiet space, sit comfortably, and close your eyes. Begin by bringing your attention to the sensation of your breath, feeling the air as it enters and leaves your body. If your mind starts to wander, gently bring your focus back to your breath without judgment. It's perfectly normal for your thoughts to wander, but the key is to simply return your attention to your breath whenever this happens. With time, you'll find that your ability to stay present improves and your mind becomes more peaceful. Another simple form of meditation is loving kindness meditation, metta. In this practice, you silently repeat phrases of goodwill and compassion toward yourself and others. Start by wishing yourself peace and happiness, then extend those wishes to others in your life, friends, family, and even strangers. This practice cultivates positive emotions and enhances feelings of connection and empathy. As you continue to meditate regularly, you'll notice subtle shifts in your life. You may feel more present, more grounded, and more in tune with your inner self. You'll find that daily stresses don't seem as overwhelming because you've developed the ability to respond mindfully rather than react impulsively. Meditation helps us develop the inner resources to navigate life's challenges with calm and clarity, providing a refuge from the noise of the world. Incorporating meditation into your daily routine doesn't need to be time-consuming. Even just 5 to 10 minutes a day can make a significant difference in your mental well-being. The practice of meditation teaches us to step back, observe, and let go of the need to control every aspect of our lives. It provides a pathway to inner peace, allowing us to cultivate clarity and mindfulness, which in turn helps us live more fully in the present moment. By making meditation a regular part of your life, you create space for serenity and insight, giving yourself the tools to navigate life with greater ease and understanding. Letting go of control, trusting the process. Letting go of control is often one of the most difficult lessons we face, yet it is a central theme in Buddhist philosophy. It doesn't mean we stop making efforts or become passive. It means we come to terms with the fact that we cannot control every detail of our lives. When we try to force life into our narrow vision, we often end up struggling, frustrated, and exhausted. However, when we learn to release the need to control, we create space for peace and freedom. One real-life example of letting go of control can be seen in the story of a woman who lost her job during an economic downer. Initially, she was devastated, feeling as though she had lost her identity and security. But after the initial shock wore off, she chose to let go of her obsession with finding another job immediately and started to focus on her personal growth. She explored new hobbies, deepened relationships with friends, and even volunteered. Months later, she found a job that aligned perfectly with her passions, something she would never have pursued had she stayed fixated on the original job she had lost. In this case, letting go of the need to control the timeline of her career allowed her to open herself to new opportunities and embrace life's flow. Another example is the story of a man going through a painful divorce. He spent years fighting with his ex-spouse, trying to control the outcome of the divorce proceedings. His emotional well-being was suffering because he was holding on so tightly to his desire for a specific outcome. Eventually, he decided to shift his focus to healing, accepting the situation as it was rather than resisting it. Once he embraced the uncertainty of his future, he was able to move forward with peace and clarity. His ability to let go of control led to a healthier, happier life, and he later found a loving partner who was a better match for him than his previous relationship. These stories highlight the benefit of letting go of control. It allows us to adapt, grow, and move forward with greater peace. When we stop resisting, we begin to flow with life's natural rhythm. Like a river that doesn't fight the rocks in its path, we can navigate life's challenges with greater ease and grace. Control creates tension, while letting go creates the space for natural progress and inner tranquility. One of the most important benefits of accepting life's uncertainty is that it frees us from constant worry about the future. The more we try to control what's coming next, the more anxious we become. Learning to embrace uncertainty means living in the present rather than being consumed by the what-ifs of tomorrow. When we focus on the here and now, we allow ourselves to fully experience life, without the pressure of controlling every moment. From a personal perspective, I found that living in the present has brought a sense of freedom that I never experienced before. When I stopped worrying about what might happen in the future, I became more at peace with what is. This shift didn't happen overnight, but by gradually practicing mindfulness and focusing on the present moment, I was able to break free from the anxiety that once consumed me. We don't need to have all the answers right now, and sometimes the most peaceful choice is to stop trying to control every outcome and simply trust the process. In conclusion, letting go of control isn't about abandoning our responsibilities or becoming passive. It's about acknowledging that we can't control everything. By embracing life's uncertainties, we reduce our stress and open ourselves to new possibilities. Learning to trust the process and live in the present allows us to flow with life, experiencing it fully without being bogged down by the weight of future expectations. Compassion, the key to healing. Compassion is an essential teaching in Buddhism, not just as a way to alleviate the suffering of others, but also as a vital practice for healing our own emotional wounds. One of the most powerful Buddhist stories that illustrates the importance of compassion and forgiveness involves a monk and a man burdened by his grudges. The man was carrying a large sack of stones, each one representing his unresolved anger, resentment, and past mistakes. The monk, seeing the weight of the burden, asked, "Why are you carrying that weight?" The man explained that he couldn't let go of the past, that he was holding on to these grudges because he believed they defined his suffering. The monk gently replied, "Let go of those stones. Carrying them only weighs you down. Peace comes when you release the anger and resentment you carry." This story illustrates a fundamental truth. Holding on to anger and resentment doesn't serve us. It only perpetuates our suffering. By practicing compassion, both for ourselves and for others, we can free ourselves from the emotional burdens that prevent us from moving forward. It teaches us that the key to healing is not in holding on to the past or punishing ourselves for our mistakes, but in letting go and allowing compassion to transform our hearts. Compassion is important not only for the healing of others, but for our own emotional and psychological well-being. We often find ourselves being our harshest critics, holding on to guilt, regret, or self-blame for past actions. But Buddhist teachings remind us that we cannot fully heal if we constantly judge ourselves or remain trapped in the past. Just as we would comfort a loved one in pain, we must also offer that same kindness and understanding to ourselves. Self-compassion is not about excusing harmful behavior, but about accepting our imperfections and acknowledging that we are all human, subject to making mistakes. The practice of self-compassion helps us move beyond guilt and judgment, enabling us to learn from our mistakes rather than be consumed by them. When we let go of self-criticism, we free ourselves from the cycle of negative thoughts that prevent growth. This shift allows us to approach life with a sense of peace and acceptance, knowing that we are deserving of love and understanding, both from others and from ourselves. On a broader level, compassion also has the power to heal our relationships with others. When we approach others with compassion, we build trust and understanding. Compassion allows us to see beyond a person's actions and understand the underlying pain they may be experiencing. It helps us to not only forgive others, but also to offer them the opportunity for change. By offering compassion to others, we break the cycle of resentment and anger that often perpetuates conflict, fostering healthier, more harmonious relationships. In relationships, whether personal or professional, when we practice compassion, we create space for healing. Instead of holding onto grudges or resentment, we allow ourselves to move forward with open hearts. Forgiveness, which is closely linked to compassion, enables us to release the emotional weight we carry. By forgiving others, we free ourselves from the toxic effects of anger and bitterness, allowing room for more loving, understanding interactions. Ultimately, compassion helps us transcend pain and suffering. When we practice compassion for ourselves, we can begin to heal our own emotional wounds. When we extend compassion to others, we foster relationships built on mutual respect, empathy, and understanding. Compassion allows us to let go of negativity, rebuild trust, and create deeper, more meaningful connections. It is through this compassionate mindset that we find the peace and healing we all seek. Buddhism is not merely a philosophy, it is a way of life. It invites us to apply its timeless teachings: detachment, acceptance, trust, meditation, and compassion into every moment of our daily existence. These practices are not just abstract concepts. They are tools that help us cultivate the peace, joy, and freedom we all long for. By embracing these principles, we stop fighting the inevitable, learning instead to flow with life as it is. As the monk in the forest wisely said, "If you walk in a hurry, it will take much longer. If you walk with patience, it will come sooner than you think." This statement beautifully captures the essence of living mindfully, without rushing or forcing things. It reminds us that when we practice patience, trust, and acceptance, everything unfolds in its own time, often bringing us greater peace and fulfillment than we could have imagined. Every step on this journey is an opportunity for growth, an invitation to learn from our experiences and embrace the ebb and flow of life. Whether we face challenges or moments of joy, we are constantly learning to live with more awareness and grace. What is meant for you will come when the time is right, and by trusting in the process, we open ourselves to the beautiful unfolding of life's wisdom. If this video has inspired you, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. We would love to hear your thoughts and how you apply these teachings in your own life. Join us on this journey of self-discovery and transformation here at Zen Mind Journey, where we continue to explore the wisdom that brings true peace and mindfulness into our everyday lives. Keep walking with patience and let the journey unfold.